Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to have you joining us today. My name is Laura, and I'm with Voyageurs Conservancy, the official nonprofit partner of Voyageurs National Park. We are thrilled to be co-presenting with our park partner for this new installment, this autumn installment of Painting the Park. Before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the Conservancy. We are the official nonprofit partner of Voyageurs National Park. And a lot of parks have nonprofit or friends groups that help them see beyond their limited budgets. In our partnership with Voyageurs National Park, we help fund and manage projects and programs that the National Park Service could not complete on their own. We have facilitated youth crews who do conservation projects in the park, collaborated on community recreation events, hosted a yearly photo contest, and have so many more plans for this year and beyond. Voyageurs Conservancy is a community of stewards who support the park with their time and resources for projects that sustain the park. If you are already a part of or would like to join the Voyageurs community, we would love to keep in touch. If you want to sign up for our e-newsletter, visit Voyageurs.org and follow the park and the Conservancy on social media. All right, now it's time to grab your art supplies and join Ranger Mariah in exploring the art and science of autumn, as inspired by a photo of Daly Bay, which was taken by Don Brenneman.
Really excited to join with you today. I'm a landscape painter in the off season, so in the winter, I am a professional artist and I paint landscapes. So this is something that's really, really meaningful to me. I'm originally from Maine, so very similar landscape as Minnesota here. There's also subtleties that I'm excited to kind of clue you into. So now's the time when we're gonna get our palettes ready. So this is my little travel palette. Ooh, there's some drippy paint, but I got some red paint. So we're using primary colors today. Red, yellow, and then I got some blue paints. And I like to use cool blue as well as warm blue. So blues that have a little bit more purple, ultramarine is kind of the technical name for it. So just gonna get a little blue. And then also a cool blue, so a blue that has a little bit more green in it. I'm gonna add that. And then also a little bit of white, right? So we can get things lighter and darker and the whole shebang. Awesome. And again, I just want to highlight that this is the way that I paint, and I like to create landscapes so that they're kind of impressionistic essences of these landscapes. But if you feel inclined to use different brush strokes than I do, or kind of let inspiration take you, please go that direction, right? You are the artist, and I want you to kind of feel inclined to take that artistic liberty. Okay, awesome. So I have a red canvas behind me. I like to paint a ground layer of my canvas, which is the opposite of the majority of what I'm about to paint. So I usually like to do a red or orange background that like brings through and kind of highlights what we're about to paint on top of it. So you can see the color wheel here. The opposite of kind of these greens and blues that we're about to paint are these oranges and reds. So that's kind of the thought process behind that. So in addition to my paints, I have a little rag washcloth as well as my smock, some paintbrushes of varying sizes, and some water that we're going to use to kind of dilute the colors. But we're just going to dive in whenever you're ready. So I like to start with a brush that's a little bit larger. So kind of a wide bristled brush. Start large and then work down towards different sizes, different smaller sizes. And we're just gonna start painting in the horizon. So using the source image, I'm going to just grab like a light blue color that kind of is that horizon line color that we're about to paint. And I'm going to just draw in the horizon line. About 2/3 of the way up the painting. Just draw on that horizon line. As a landscape painter, I like to paint the thing that's farthest in the distance first, and I'm just going to fill it in with those blues colors. And I want you to notice the whole sky is not just one single blue color, right? It's almost like a pinky sunset color on the horizon. And then as it grows, as the horizon gets wider and wider, it becomes darker and darker. So there's all these subtleties that we should be aware of when we're looking at landscapes. There's so much to notice. So I'm just going to kind of fill it in, just get creative. I'm kind of mixing these warm blues as well as these cool blues on top of each other, and kind of swaying the paintbrush in the direction that the clouds are swooping, right? We've got a lot of dynamic clouds here in Minnesota at Voyageurs National Park, especially today. We're getting some much needed rain, which is lovely. So we're gonna just add some swoopy swoop colors in. And you can see those reds are peeping through a little bit, so it adds dimension. We're painting a 2D painting of something 3D in the world. So that kind of helps that. So that's the farthest thing in the distance. But now I want you to look at this image and what's the next closest thing? So we're kind of layering the layers of a cake. The next closest thing that we're painting is this little line back here of land. So this landscape was on a fault line originally, millions and millions of years ago. And then the glaciers came through and scraped it out. So our topography is pretty flat, but our lakes are super, super deep. So that's that evidence of kind of glaciers coming through and scraping here. So we're going to draw in that, that straight horizon line we have in the distance. And notice the color's a little bit duller. It's not just a black line. It's kind of this combination of blue. I almost see like a purpley with a little hint of green. I'm just kind of mixing some colors to make a little brown color, maybe a little green brown. And we're just kind of tossing in shapes as reference points right now. So now's not the time to be nitty gritty. Now is just the time to get those general shapes plugged in so that we can go back and add those details. All right, so I just added a simple line right there. Simple, simple, simple. There's our topography. Now we're just going to go ahead and add the water in. So we're going to add that deep water that I was talking about. There's so many wildlife animals in our park that thrive off of our water. 40% of Voyageurs National Park is water. So we're going to add that in. So notice too, it's not just all one color water, right? It kind of reflects the sky. So at first, towards this landmass we just painted in, it's white, and then it gets darker and darker and darker as it gets closer to you. So we're gonna try that on now. And I kind of like to mix paints just right on the canvas, but it's totally up to you what your style is. I'm gonna start off with a little bit of that whitish highlights. And you don't even have to paint to the end because we're going to paint another landmass on top of that. So we're just kind of painting this sliver over here and then wrapping it around. So then as we kind of get closer to the foreground, closer to me, closer to our toes if we were painting outside, I'm going to add in those kind of darker colors. So I'm using a big paintbrush. Here we go. Just kind of mixing a bunch of colors, adding even some red to it to give it almost that purpley dark rich color. You can tell that it's a nice deep lake, right? Okay. Just filling those colors in. Awesome. Cool. And I like to kind of pop around when I'm painting. So you kind of do one layer, wait for it to dry, and then add another layer on top. So I'm going to return to the sky again and add another layer of some white to really get that kind of highlighted area. You can even add, you know, a little bit of pink to that if you want to highlight the fact that it is that sunset kind of golden hour. I'm just going to add a little bit more white now that that paint has dried. And now's the time to get fun with the clouds. The thing about clouds is that they're always changing. They're always different and unique. So you can use the source image as a reference if you want to paint clouds in that way, but you don't have to. You can make the clouds however you choose. Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. So I'll just paint those clouds in. And you can go at your own pace, whatever works for you. I'm just kind of giving you the general things to focus on. But of course, you are the artist, and I'm just trying to give you the tool. All right. There we are. A little swoopy. Okay, I'm going to add some more blues at the top. It's all about the layers. Just making that perfect parfait. I also like to think of these paintings as color studies. So at first, I was really focused on, when I first got started painting, I was really focused on all of the details. And as I've progressed and progressed, I mostly just want to focus on capturing the essence, the fleeting essence of these places, not being too held down to all of the details, but just focusing on the different colors, the colors that I'm trying to create and depict and recreate, I guess. So this is a good opportunity as impressionists to kind of let go of preconceived notions of what a painting should and shouldn't look like. We're just having fun here, noticing the fun fall colors. So again, go at your own pace. I'm going to start filling in some darker blues down below. So you can work on the sky now, you can work on the horizon, but I'm going to fill in some darker colors, maybe add some purple down below here so it's nice and dark and rich. All right. And we're going to add some of those white reflections so it kind of balances it all out. The thing that's so lovely about painting is if you don't like a stroke that you made, or you just, it's not looking the way you want it to look, you just wait for it to dry and then you paint right over it. Woohoo! Very cathartic. All right, so I'm kind of adding the ripples. And also what I like to do is move your paint stroke in the direction that the land and the water is moving. So the ripples of the water are kind of progressing from left to right. So I am taking my paintbrush and mimicking that motion. And if you need more paint, you can get some. I actually need a little bit more warm blue right now, so I'm going to refill just a dot, not a lot. is the way to do it. You can always go back for more, right? Getting thirsty over here. Okay. So we are just filling those colors in. Okay, so kind of doing that left to right motion over and over again. All right, how are we looking? How are we looking? Might again go back to the sky. The big layer day today. Add all the colors of the sky on in. Okay. We're starting to get somewhere, aren't we? Okay, so it is okay if the sky and the water is not exactly how you want. We're gonna keep on going back to it. Right now, we're just focusing on the general shapes, right? So we're still using that big fat brush. So I'm gonna kind of wipe, I like my apron as a cloth almost to get rid of all my excess paint. So I'm gonna wipe the paint off of my apron because we're going to start with a fresh color as we put the shapes of the land in. So we did a little line of the land in the distance, but now we're doing the land kind of in the middle ground and foreground. So in painting, I like to think of things in the distance, they're in the background, right? Things in the middle, so that's kind of like the land that we put in the water we just painted, that's the middle ground. And things that are closest to our face, that's the foreground. So those are the things that are closest to us. They are the most bright, the most vibrant things. And that's known as atmospheric perspective. So things far in the distance are going to be a little bit more hazy, a little bit kind of duller of a color. And as you get close up to things, you can see all of the intricacies of those moments, right? So we're going to paint these beautiful trees over here. Voyageurs National Park has a lot of different types of trees, both coniferous and deciduous. So right now we can see kind of the maples. Some of our maples are starting to explode with that red color. We've also got a lot of oak trees, birch trees, and aspen trees. Those ones are starting to turn that yellow color right now. So what kind of causes that is the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll in trees make the leaves bright green. You know, they're searching for the sunlight and trying to kind of get those nutrients from the sunlight to give to the tree. But in the fall, the light starts to get lower and lower. It starts to get colder, and the tree's like, you know, it just doesn't really make sense energy-wise for me to continue this process. So I'm gonna suck the chlorophyll back on in to kind of my core, my tree core. And that's why the trees are starting to change color. They're showing their true colors. The leaves are showing their true colors without chlorophyll. So those reds and oranges and yellows that we start to see are the leaves' true colors as the tree is starting to conserve that energy to kind of last through the winter. So we are kind of painting that science in motion right now. So I'm going to start with this band right here. As the glacier came through and carved this landscape, it kind of left a lot of dredges, a lot of cove-like areas and islands. So that's kind of what we're seeing. We have the oldest, some of the oldest exposed rocks in North America here in Voyageurs National Park. They're 2.8 billion years old. So really, really exciting stuff. And we're gonna paint them right now. We are painting history. So this rock here is kind of that dark purpley brown color. I don't yet like to use black in painting because there's no real blacks. It's always something else, right? A shadow might not be, we might think it looks black, but it's actually like a dark green blue or something like that. So I'm going to kind of paint a purple color using red and blue and maybe a little bit of yellow to kind of mute it out. And then we are going to paint that rock formation, that 2.8 billion year old rock formation, kind of cutting and jutting out in front atop the water. I'm going to paint that on in. And big gestural strokes. And that land formation, it goes almost to the very end of the painting itself. Again, you can always have artistic liberties if you want your cove to be a little bit shorter or longer. But I'm gonna just go by the reference image here and kind of paint those rocks on in. All right. Excellent. Okay, so we got kind of our island formed, our cove. But the next thing that we can focus on is what's on the outskirts of the cove, right? So that, those are, to the looks of it, are cattails. And Voyageurs, we've been having a problem with invasive cattails here in the park that are taking over. So we actually have aquatics crews and invasive crews who are out there trying to maintain this overpopulation of invasive plants. So what makes invasive plants not so great for the park is they can expand really fast and they take up space for native plants, plants that kind of are meant to be here, were here originally, like wild rice. So the Ojibwe are the indigenous peoples that have lived in Voyageurs National Park for generations and generations and continue to live and subside off of this land. They, kind of a big marker for them landing here was the population of wild rice in the park. And it's just starting to come back. But it's a great thing to prepare for winter. You can harvest it in canoes by kind of shaking these big rice stalks into a canoe. And then that's kind of, you're set for winter if you have enough kind of stalks of that wild rice. So we're painting the invasive species right now that might not belong in the park because we are capturing a moment in history. And hopefully, you know, in the next couple of years, if we can bring back the native species, maybe we wouldn't paint the cattails anymore. Maybe next time we paint, it'll be that native species of wild rice. So we're going to kind of add that honey yellow color of the invasive cattail in there. All right, here we go. Again, we're still using a big brush, so you can kind of just be gestural with it. I'm kind of painting upward because the wild rice or the cattails go up and down, right? So I'm kind of painting up and down, kind of onto the rocks there. And the cool thing about water is it reflects, right? It reflects the light that we see. So the same thing we do up to create the cattails, we can do the same thing with the bristles going down to be the capturing the reflection, right? So we're kind of doing the same thing, but in reverse. Awesome. And again, we're going to have time to crisp it up a little. So no worries, we're just getting those shapes in. What else do we have? We've got those trees, right? Those trees that are showing signs of this changing season. We are capturing the movement of a place, and I think by painting fall, that really depicts, we're kind of on the cusp, we're straddling two seasons, summer and winter. So by painting fall, you are kind of showing time progress, which is a really exciting opportunity. So I'm going to paint in some blobby blob trees. And notice the different shapes of the trees. We got some kind of rounded trees. And then we also have more pointy trees, right? So I want you to notice the specific shapes. So I'm going to kind of paint in. We got this rounded tree that's starting to turn yellow. Just going to paint that in there. Goes almost up to the top. And then I'm just going to reverse it. I have the same color on my paintbrush right now. So I'm just going to reverse it and paint it into the reflection. Okay, what's next? Looks like we've got a nice maple tree down here that's starting to turn those red colors, show its true colors. Now that the chlorophyll is like, enough is enough, winter is coming. So we're going to take that red color and add some maple. Maple on in, and then I'm just going to reverse it. Maybe add a little bit more red over here and over there, and kind of get fun with it. The things about painting tree. The thing about painting trees is that you can just kind of let it go. Nobody's going to be like, well, actually, that leaf should be right over here and not over there. A tree is a tree. We're just painting kind of what we see, and we can get a little gestural with it, get a little fun. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to add in some greens. So get that yellow color. We've got maybe some, what do we have back there? The aspens and the birches are starting to turn a little bit yellow now, but maybe we've got some that are still a little green back there. So we can add some greens in. I might need a little bit more yellow. Okay. And then there's this one right out here, the lone tree. And kind of just paint it in reverse. All right. Cool. Things are starting to come together. All right, awesome. So I'm going to retire this big fat brush and switch down to a smaller size brush right now so that we can start to focus on those little details and start to continue painting in some of the smaller things that are going to make this painting look truly like the landscape we're trying to depict. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the line in the distance and just crispen that up a little. Now would be a good time too if you want to add more to your clouds and the paint in the distance has dried. You can add some more to your clouds, but I'm just going to add a little bit more color. You kind of got those up and down trees a little bit. So you can add that texture if you so please. Okay. And I'm going to add a little bit of white or light blue down here. To differentiate the water from the land itself. We're kind of adding a light up against a dark, and that's how we see the world. That's how our eyes project the world around us. Our life is not a coloring book that has, lines, black lines that we kind of fill in. They're lights against darks, and that's kind of how we perceive the three-dimensional world around us. So that's what we're doing. We're mimicking that process right now. Okay. Awesome, starting to come together, and maybe I'll wrap those lights in onto that land as well. All right. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a lot more kind of in it when I have the smaller brush, right? So when I have a big fat brush, I'm like, la-di-da, I'm painting, woohoo! And when I get the smaller brushes, that's kind of when I focus, right? So it takes me a little bit longer to do things that are smaller, which makes sense. But it's kind of a different pacing of completing a painting. Awesome. Okay, so now let's go back to this land formation. I'm gonna add some of those dark colors in again. Layer, layer, layer. It's all about the layers today and every day, really. Okay. We're gonna add those rocks in. Add on in. Okay. Whoa. Awesome. So again, we're going to take those lights and put them right up against the dark. So we just painted some of our greenstone, our 2.8 billion year old rocks, casually. And we are going to take a nice white, a little bit of yellow, and create a highlight. So focus in on your rocks there. And notice how some of those rock faces are highlighted. There's like a little thin highlight. That's kind of the surfaces of the rocks that are facing the sun and kind of getting highlighted, being exposed in a beautiful way that helps us see the land. So we're going to add in those highlights. So it kind of goes along the surface there. Awesome. Does one of those. And then it's kind of all over the place in the rocks, right? It's not as straight of a line. There's like a few that go up, a few that go down. Oh, something like that. Something. Okay, I'm going to go in and add some more highlights to those cattails. What do you say? So get some nice rich yellow, maybe mixed with a little bit more red. So it's that honey color we kind of talked about. Honestly, half of painting is just mixing colors, which I think is quite soothing. Okay, I'm gonna add those colors in. And now remember, we're kind of going up and down, up and down. Up and down to form those bristles. And then just go ahead and paint that reverse right on the water, the reflection. Okay. Awesome, awesome. How are we doing so far? Doing okay? All right, I am going to get a color that's a little bit darker so that we can add those colors in. so it's just a little bit more crisp for us. So that's that dark blue, kind of ultramarine color. I'm going to switch brushes again. A little bit even tinier now. Okay. So now we're really going to crisp up on our edges. We're focusing on things that are closest to our eyes. Adding those rocks on in. And those cattails, you want that up and down motion. Up and down, up and down. Okay. I'm kind of excited to get back to the trees. And what about you? Yeah, sound good? Okay, so I'm gonna go to this bright yellow tree. Let's add some more dimension into that. We got some yellows, we got some reds. To make it beautiful. So now you can kind of add some little dots and dashes to show the leaves kind of moving in different directions. They're all little shapes, but if you kind of squint your eyes, you can see the larger shape. So sometimes I like to kind of have my eyes expanded and then squint, and expanded and squint, because it's easy to get lost in the details. All right, so we're kind of adding the different directions that the leaves are going, kind of poking out towards the sky. This is sometimes I call it getting a little chunky, getting paint a little chunky and kind of just gopping it on the surface and mixing it on the canvas itself. It's pretty fun. Right, and then bringing it all the way down to the cattails there. Mixing and moving, moving and grooving. Okay. I'm adding a little bit of white around the left side of the tree to show that highlight. That is kind of the direction that the sun is going. It is highlighting the left side of the tree. So I'm gonna add that with a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, kind of haloing around the tree, which again helps us see it as a dimensional object. Okay. All right, let's get those trees in the back too. So we got some of those greens. Towards the bottom, and notice here too, so right above the cattails, again, it's the darks with the lights. Right above the cattails, there's kind of a pocket of darkness before the trees form into their true colors. So we can add that. Pocket of darkness. Okay, and have it kind of expand into the trees themselves. And we can do that on the reverse, of course, too. All right. Woohoo. Okay, so now let's paint those trees. I think I'm gonna do some green ones now. I'm feeling green. Those trees that are still holding on. There's still sunlight left. I'm just gonna go at my own pace, okay? The storm last night definitely shook some of the leaves off the trees. So again, we're kind of capturing this fleeting moment. All right, let's add some greens. This one's a little bit more straight up and down than it is kind of wide and bulky. So just notice that. Notice the slight differences. Every tree is unique and special. Okay. And then again, you can do it on the reverse. And this reflection is pretty reciprocal of the top. But you can get a little bit more loose with the reflection to show that, it's water. If a motorboat just went by, it could be rippling, right? So the reflection tends to be a little bit more distorted than the actual trees themselves. Mm-hmm. All right. You can kind of be a little bit more loosey-goosey on the reflection. I don't mind. You do whatever you want. All right, we're getting there. Okay, so let's go to those reds now, right? Those maples, I think those might be my favorite changing colors. They're so beautiful. And it's that red, it's that pop of red against a mostly blue and green landscape. I think that's the most striking for me anyways. Okay, so we're adding those shapes. That one is a little bit more puffy of a tree, right? A little more rotund. But again, you can kind of have fun with the shapes that we're making. Nobody's going to be like, well, actually, that one tree is, pointier than you painted it. It's like a tree is a tree. You can kind of make it however you please because it's an organic shape, right? It's not just a square or triangle that looks a certain way. They're all different and unique, just like you. Okay, so we're adding some of those reds, maybe some fun yellows in there. And then do the reverse too. Okay, and last but not least, I'm going to do this little tree at the end. Nice little green friend. And then we can add those details. Woohoo! Okay. You can kind of see that little tree at the end. The leaves are expanding towards the sun, stretching out kind of from side to side. So you can mimic that if you so choose. Okay, so we kind of got the general shapes in. Proud of us. So now I'm just going to add little details to kind of make the painting crisper and more true to what our eyes would see if we were actually outside in the field painting in plein air, which means painting outside with the elements, against the elements. It'd be hard today because it's pouring right outside my window here, but still fun to try. And these things I used to be a 5th grade teacher before becoming a park ranger. And I used to tell my students, the last 10% of a painting takes 90% of the time. So you can just imagine, this kind of is the general shape, the general colors that we wanted to map out. But you can spend, the last little nitty-gritty highlights, you can spend the majority of time working on those things. So I'm just going to fill in some nooks and crannies that I would, but I encourage you, if you don't have time today, to return back to this painting and go at your own pace and add those details to your liking. Because it's not done until you think it's done, until you say it's done. My class might end and you might feel like it's good. It is done. But if you don't feel that it's good or it's done, then you can return to it. You can always add more to paintings, which is a really exciting opportunity, I think, anyway. But right for now, I think I'm going to add in some little highlights in the background. One of my favorite things to do is to add these whites and blues in between the trees. So it's the negative space that we see through the slats of the trees we can add in now. I'm going to take some of that white color and kind of bring it on down to add that negative space in between the trees. Don't need too much, just enough to show that the trees are kind of overlapping. Just some dots and dashes here and there. I'm going to add a little bit more highlights to the background there. Maybe a few more friendly clouds. You can even see some negative space poking through the center of the tree there, so feel free to add those. Some are more dots, some are more kind of like straight lines, right? Maybe potentially branches that we're trying to depict. And then on that side. Cool. So now we're just kind of having fun with adding those details. So I'm going to do the same to the reverse. Same to the reflection. It's kind of fun painting a reflection because you get 2 chances, right? If you don't like kind of how you did it one way, you can take another stab at it in the reflection and then go back once it's dry up top. All right, so it's a little bit lighter around these pockets here. So I'm going to add that light color. Yeah. Add those kind of brights to the reflection itself. And I don't know if you've noticed, but throughout this class, I'm constantly kind of going up close and personal, painting the nitty-gritties of the painting, and then also stepping back, taking a step back to see what it looks like as a whole. I'm painting in kind of the ripples, the movement of the lake that we're trying to capture. And again, this is just an hour-long class. Paintings usually can take me anywhere from an hour to, months and weeks. So again, I like to view these as color studies. We are just grasping at the essence of these places and kind of relinquishing ourselves of what a painting has to look like. These paintings are all going to be unique and beautiful because you offer a different perspective. Each person that paints this painting, we're painting the same thing, but it's all going to be slightly different because you offer a different perspective. You have different sets of skills to bring to the table. And that can't be wrong. There's no right or wrong way to make a painting. You are creating right now, which is positive and amazing. So thank you for participating in that. I think I'm just going to add a few more last minute details, but then it's kind of up to you. It's up to you to add what you think will make it, up to par with your liking. So I'm going to add a little bit more details to the pockets of the reflection down there where it gets a little dark. We might need some more cattail action too. And just like we added in those highlights, you can also take some time to get some dark colors in there. So that brown or those darker purples into the trees as well. So it's not just one orange blob. You can actually see the tree trunks and the branches expand from that. So if you'd like, you can add those details in. So I'm just kind of doing it as just like a quick little line, maybe a few different dots and dashes. But it doesn't have to be anything too much. Okay. Kind of add those last minute details. And then call it good whenever you think you are ready. I want you to, take the time that you need to finish this painting, and I would love, love, love to see the finished products. If you want to email them to Voyageurs National Park, or if you'd like to post them on social media or anything like that, link us to Voyageurs National Park. Or just go ahead and email them, and I'd love to see your finished products. And I think we got some good work done. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope I get to see you in person. But I've really enjoyed interacting virtually with you today. So thank you so much. Woohoo!